Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you all for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects, joined as always by our director of scouting, who, don't worry, he's not going to be limited to 20 seconds per take on this episode, Ian Kundle. Ian, welcome to the show. It is Friday, September 9th as we record this. The A-ball season is almost over, and some weird new happenings in the news today. So a good day to hop on the pod, I think. What's on your mind?
There's been a lot of news this week. The Red Sox have done a lot of stuff. MLB's done stuff. The MLBPA has done stuff. So yeah, it's been an interesting, little stretch for baseball right now. As it wraps up the minor league season. So
it has
a lot going on.
Yep, we've got Triston Casas, our number 2 prospect in the system, promoted to MLB, and Bobby Dahlbeck demoted to AAA to make room. We've got new rankings that went up at the beginning of September to chat about new rules in MLB next year. Dua Lipa and MLB in a partnership. New rules coming to MLB, including the pitch clock, including bigger bases, including pickoff rule, no shifting. We're going to talk about all that, and of course, a little bit about minor leaguers joining the MLBPA, which I feel like is kind of flying a little bit under the radar. Kind of a big deal, honestly. And we're going to get a guest soon to talk about that, among other things. But we'll talk a little about that as well. So a lot of good stuff on this episode of the podcast. First, if you want to support the show, a few ways you can do that. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Tell a friend, tell your neighbor, tell your boss at work during your performance review. When they say anything else you want to say, you say, well, there's this podcast. I think you should listen to it. Tell them about it. They'll appreciate it. And you'll get a bigger raise because of it. I think. I can't guarantee anything, but I would if I were you, if I were your boss. So tell your boss about it. And of course, you can support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects. Pledge a certain amount per episode, get some neat perks every month, every time we go to a game, so on and so forth. So check that out. We always shout out our $5 level Patreon supporters. We do that at the end of the show. But all that said, Ian, let's jump into it. And I think really the headline is something that happened in the interim between the last episode and this one. That'd be the promotion of Triston Casas. He is in Boston. He is starting every day at first base. Seems like Hosmer's probably done for the year. I don't know if they've come out and said it. At this point, we've got to think it would. I mean, I guess if he's ready to play in a week, they'll play him. But opportunity knocked, and they went ahead and called him up. What are your thoughts on the move? I know last episode we were, of course, talking about it, and we dropped the podcast episode like 2 hours before the news dropped that Casas was coming up. So what are your thoughts on them giving Casas a shot? Giving him a shot to play every day, them making the move now as opposed to next year?
I know we talked about in the last episode how we didn't think it was likely, but obviously the caveat there was always if Hosmer was out for the year, they could just make the decision to do that. And that's pretty clearly what I think kind of forced their hand with this move was with Hosmer out of the year. It didn't make sense not to give him a look and get him some at bats so he can kind of get used to the pitching, get used to the speed of the game, and just, kind of just get used to being a major leaguer. So obviously there's some very different, the quality of life, the way you have to prepare yourself for games. I know it seemed like the Boston media quite enjoyed his preparation for his major league debut.
Sunning.
Yeah. So I just think it made sense. He was obviously playing really well in Worcester when he got called up. And I think that he was ready for a new challenge. And, I would have been fine too if they left him down. And if Hosmer was back, I think that's what would have happened. But without him, it was hard to justify it. And I think that it's going to be great for him in kind of preparation for next season.
It kind of highlights a push-pull that they have going on at the major league level right now, Ian, where you've got Costas up playing every day. You've got Wong up probably playing every other day.
Yeah, it seems like he's going to catch like 4 games a week, 5 games a week. Yeah. And then the other McGuire and Plawecki will get, 2 starts for McGuire, 1 for Plawecki, things like that.
Yeah. And it's this push-pull of like, I saw people on our forum today saying like, just stop playing JD Martinez, just stop playing Plawecki, just stop. And it's like, you can't just stop playing guys. Because if you do that to an established veteran, like that then becomes your reputation. Like, hey, they're going to sign you in the second, like it goes bad, they're just going to sit you. And they're not going to play in. It's like, this is a guy who's entering free agency. He wants to run his numbers up as high as possible. That just leaves a bad taste in players' mouths if you do that kind of thing. So I don't think they're in a point where they're going to start sitting JD Martinez because he's probably not going to be back next year.
No, the person they should be sitting is Garrett Whitlock. They should shut him down for the season.
Wholeheartedly agree.
I don't really like that he's pitching with all these restrictions.
He's clearly still banged up.
Well, he's compromised. It's his hip. Yeah, he can't walk.
Just let it heal. Like,
so yeah. I mean, I understand he wants
shut it
to be
down
out
and
there.
Get Hermann up, man. Like,
I understand he wants to be out there and like there's no long-term, like, no injury risk, but it's painful to watch him like trying to move around the mound.
Yeah,
sorry,
I mean,
go back to what you were saying.
No, but that's part of it too. I mean, it's kind of this push-pull of like, you've got Frank Hermann in AAA. I would not mind him coming up and getting a look. Like, I really wouldn't. I know that we talked about it a little bit, and you had good reasons for why they were waiting on him as opposed to Edward Bizzardo. But I mean, they're adding him to the 40-man. I think we agree at this point, right? Like, if you're going to add him, if
he's either going to get added or he's getting picked. Like, it's,
exactly.
He's 95 to 97 with an above average splitter and like a fringy average-ish slider. Like, that's some team will take a chance on that if the Red Sox don't. And
yeah,
I think he's going to get protected personally.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, look, let's shut Whitlock down. Heck, if you want to give AJ Politi a look, I wouldn't, but like, you can make room for him. You can make room for anyone you want to get a look at, do they give Seabold another couple of starts and, maybe shut Bayo down early because he's hitting an innings limit? I don't know. Like, you've got to balance that against, like, you've got guys who need to play. Like, you can't just stop pitching Eovaldi. You can't just stop pitching. I mean, I guess he's hurt. I'm saying if he comes back and he's healthy, you can't stop pitching Waka, Hill. Like I saw, someone wanted to push Hill to the bullpen, and like, you can't just stop pitching guys. You can't just stop playing guys. So it's an interesting tightrope they need to walk. I'm glad Costas is up. I think, I mean, he's putting in good at bats. He's not necessarily going to tear the cover off the ball, but I think this is going to help him next year.
Well, and two things. Number one, pretty sad that Ryan Brazier held his first home run ball hostage for as long as he did. That was one of the strangest things I've ever watched in a baseball
game. That guy
game.
Was hammered.
That guy was incredible TV, like electric. But number two was, though, that I do think that it's important that people don't overreact if Casas struggles. Like, obviously, I think he's like 2 for something right now. I think he's 2 for 16. But like, if you look, it's going to be an adjustment for him. He obviously has there's a big gap.
2 for 17.
Thank you. There's a big gap between what you're seeing in the minors this year and what you're going to get in the majors. And I think the things to focus on with him is how is he seeing the ball against lefties? Is he taking at least quality swings, quality at bats as he swings through a slider, which he didn't pick up at all on the game I'm watching. But it's things like that are going to be important to me. Like, I think he's not expanding the zone. I think he swung at like 4 balls since he's been called up. For example, so obviously, like, the pitch selection and the knowledge of the strike zone is there, and I just think you just need to be patient. Like, we're seeing Brian Bayo, he struggled initially, but if you look at the underlying metrics, there was a lot of good going on there, and now he's starting to break out these last couple of starts. So I just want people to be patient. Costas isn't someone, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends the season hitting around 200 or even under it. Like, that's not, he's not a bust because of that. Like, correct. This is a long-term play, and they want to get him up, get his feet wet, and there's going to be some growing pains with someone like him. So yeah, just give it time.
100%. Yeah, I feel you on that. Sending Dahlbeck down. And I think that you could almost tie Jarren Duran into this discussion too, Ian, of you've got these couple of post prospects. How do they factor into your plans? And to me, I don't think you can count on either in a starting role going forward. They need to earn that back.
Well, I don't think either is a starter. I don't think that's the role that best, serves their talent.
Right. I agree. I think the question is, are they guys that you're going to just stash, like put on the bench? I mean, look, I love the idea. I think we've said this for a couple of years now. Get Dahlbeck some innings in left. and he's on the bench as your first baseman, third baseman, left fielder.
Yeah.
Or right field in parks that aren't Fenway.
Well, and talking to scouts around the game, like there's still a market for Dahlbeck. Like he's the type of player that teams would be interested in that role because you've seen players with his profile succeed in, 200, 300 at bat seasons in the major league level. You just
100%.
limit his exposure to, tough right-handers and hard throwers and just throw him out against lefties. And I think he could hit, 230 with, 10, 15 home runs. Like Darren Ruff has made a great career out of that since coming back from Korea or Japan. I can't remember which one he was over in.
Japan, I think. I was just about to say throw him on the Giants and all of a sudden
he's made a great career out of that. That type of player has a home in MLB. And that's why I think Dahlbeck and I was talking to someone who's seen them since they were sent down, and they're like, yeah, they're by far the two best players on the team. And they are kind of in that no man's land between they're too good for AAA, but they're not good enough for a full-time role in the majors. Which, if I can just interject, does not make them a 4A player. That is a different concept. Yeah, that's not what you're saying. The 4A players like Abraham Almonte, who was just called up. That's but anyway, but I think the problem was they were miscast in the role that they were in with the Red Sox. Dahlbeck, how many, do you know the answer to this? Maybe how many AAA at bats do you think Bobby Dahlbeck had before this cycle coming into this season? I don't know off the top of my head. That's a good question. I thought he was a AAA for a while. No, what would you have guessed though? 300. Way less. Really? I'm trying to bring it up. Bobby Dahlbeck has 123 career AAA plate appearances. No kidding. He played 30 games there in 2019. Oh, well, the problem is he came up during the COVID year. Right. So and then it hasn't gone. But my point is just though that he doesn't have a lot of AAA experience. He basically, went from AA to the big leagues. So, he wasn't a finished product when he got called up. He had that initial first season in the pandemic year where he was good. There were still some red flags with the strikeouts. And last season, it was manageable against lefties because of that hot streak at the end. And this season, he just never got it going. But I still think there's a usable player. Duran's a different story for me. Is a different. It's a tough fit because I think it's interesting. He's completely changed his stuff at the plate again. He's now hands high, no leg kick. So I don't know what you can count on with him. He's been hitting well since he got demoted again. But yeah, I just don't. And I think the Red Sox kind of reached their breaking point, which is why they gave Kike Hernandez that extension. Is Jarren Duran. I don't think they're penciling in to be an everyday guy. No, well, he's not a center fielder. That's the other problem. He's a left fielder. That is a problem also. But yeah, that's why Hernandez got extended. 1 year, $10 million is that's who we should mention next year. That's fine by me, man. I'm cool with that extension. Are you? 1 year deals to me are very hard to screw up. 10 million. Someone oh, that's so much more money than it's 1 year. Who cares? It's not though. Also, it's also not. I think he could have got more on the open market, especially with how weak a free agent class this is. No, he would have been the best. He arguably would have been the best center fielder on the market. It's like him and Kiermaier, which Nimmo too. Oh, Nimmo. Well, Nimmo is a different. He's not really a center field. Well, he is a center fielder, I guess. He could play center field, but I mean, he's a guy that wouldn't mind seeing and right at Fenway. Yeah. I mean, well, I'm sure he's someone we'll talk about extensively in the off season. I like that fit, honestly. But yeah, I just think that with Duran, I don't know what his long-term fit is with the organization, but at the same time, I don't think he has a lot of value in a trade right now. So they're kind of in a weird position with him that he needs to earn it back. He needs to rebuild his value, basically. Is he, and we're going to talk about this later, but I guess while we're talking about Duran, is he a guy who gains value with bigger bases and fewer pickoffs? Because here's the thing, he's fast and he hasn't been stealing bases in MLB. That's it. I mean, to be that fast and have part of it is you can't steal first base, right? He also doesn't have the best instincts as a base runner. No, but he's also just got raw speed. That's got to count for that. His raw speed should get him to 10, 15 easy. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not disputing that. But yeah, I think that it maybe could. I mean, maybe we can talk about that. I have some thoughts on who benefits from that change or the rule changes when we get to that segment. We get there, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess on paper, it seems like Baseball America has run a bunch of like numbers to see what the impact of these rule changes are, and it seems like the stolen base one is the most noticeable, other than game time.
It's up like 10%.
Yeah, like batted ball data doesn't really change things like that with the shift, but the stolen bases does. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. So I mean, look, if you've got a guy with speed, there's value there. I probably start Duran next year in AAA, but I also wouldn't hate him in a bench role. It's just the thing is, it's just like, is that just you're now kind of
a bench role at the MLB level requires buy-in, and I'm not sure he would be like happy in that role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it.
Like
Are you
Arroyo, Ref Snyder, guys like that? Like they're fine with that. And Arroyo, frankly, he plays a bigger role in that because he's a good hitter. But like Ref Snyder is a great example of someone who will have no issue being in a bench role next year, and I'd be perfectly happy to bring him back in that role next year.
I love Ref Snyder as the fourth outfielder.
But Duran, I'm not sure would fly, and frankly, because of the presence of Ref Snyder, I don't think you need him on the roster. Like when you think about it, they're going to go back to a 4. They're going to have what? So it's a 5-man or it's going to be a 13 guys 4-man bench. So I think pretty obviously the catchers are going to be Wong and McGuire next year. So
unless they do something.
Which I think I would be perfectly happy running those two out. Frankly, I've reached that level of comfort with them.
I mean, unless you can get Murphy for very little,
which won't happen. The A's want a ton. So like you're running out one of the catchers as a bench guy, and then you have to have Arroyo probably as your backup middle infielder / utility guy. Mm-hmm. Then you have Ref Snyder. So that leaves room for one spot, and you're probably not giving it to another outfielder. You probably want someone who can play like first base / third base.
If it's Arroyo and Ref Snyder,
you want a left-handed hitter who can play probably the infield.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he doesn't need to play short because you could run,
which is like
Hernandez there.
Yeah, no, and then Ref Snyder can cover all the outfield. So yeah,
Ref Snyder can cover the outfield. Arroyo can cover everywhere in the. I mean, that's exactly why Almonte's up, because it's that spot they want someone they don't mind just sitting.
Who is also a left-handed hitter though?
Who's also a left-handed hitter, right. So
because if you look at Arroyo games played this year, like he's played pretty much everywhere, but
he was also like the platoon partner for Bradley at one point.
Right. But the lowest game played positions for him are first base and third base. So that's, I think, why personally, I think you would want someone who can like work with Costas potentially.
Have it be, I guess Dahlbeck doesn't hit lefty.
Well, no, it could be Dahlbeck, frankly, but then you just don't have a left-handed hitter on
That's
the
what
bench.
I'm saying. That's the problem. You've got a right-handed bench.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll talk about that in the offseason, but I just Duran is kind of like, it seems like a square peg in a round hole for this roster going forward.
Yep. I agree. All right. I guess moving on, Ian, I mean, do you want to mention for folks who are interested in of the elevator pitch Almonte scouting report now that he's up? You've seen him in Worcester.
Yeah. That was, I remember when he was acquired, and everyone was like, there were some mean things said about that when it was just like clearly that they didn't have enough AAA
Start
depth.
the duck boats. Was the cry.
But yeah, I mean, he's a left-handed hitter. He's 33, I think. So he's been around forever, and
so has major league time. He's not a random AAA
he got
guy.
64 games last year. He probably got a World Series ring last year, frankly.
No, that was Oh yeah, that was yeah. Yep, you're right. You're absolutely right. He only hit 216, but
he's hitting this year in AAA 293, 417, 534, and that was the thing that stood out to me is it's a really good approach. Knows the strike zone, like it's professional at bats. He's not going to go up there and hurt you. And I mean, this year 61 walks in 80 games. Like there's some raw power. It's mostly pull side. He's perfectly serviceable organizational. Like he's slightly better than better than organizational, but he's like an emergency up and down outfielder type.
He is there for literally this role.
Yeah, and it's just that he's there as the fifth guy on a bench who doesn't need to ever play, but might pinch hit. If like late in the game they're facing a tough righty and they want to give they want to pinch hit for like Plawecki or something. Like that's when I could see him getting an at bat or two.
Yeah.
But he's just up there because they want Duran playing every day. Basically, like if they were in contention, I suspect Duran would be up to be a pinch runner.
That's true.
But since
That's
they're
true.
not, it makes sense to have him down in AAA getting everyday at bats.
And I guess
that's why
want
you go to Almonte.
And I guess they want Davis playing every day. I mean,
well, no, it's just they wanted a lefty. I think it's as simple as
that.
Yeah,
you're right.
They have 4 guys on the bench who are right-handed hitters. They don't need another right-handed hitter,
and they don't care about DFAing Almonte once the season ends. Although Almonte has like one more year of team control if they wanted to keep him on the 40-man, but he doesn't have any options left, so he's getting DFA'd when the season ends. Which, hey, make that month of MLB money, man. Go get that bag. So. Yeah. All right. Well, that's Abraham Almonte. Let's move on. Do you want to talk new rules? We kind of alluded to it, so we might as well go there next, Ian. Today, MLB announced, which really was no surprise, that next year they'll be implementing the pitch clock. They'll be implementing a limit on pickoff moves. They'll be using the bigger bases, which they're 2 inches bigger on each side, I think. So here are the rules. There's a pitch time. The pitch timer is 15 seconds when the bases are empty, 20 seconds with runners on base. Hitter receives 1 timeout per plate appearance. And that's basically it. There's also a restriction on pickoff moves that's not on the tweet I'm looking at, which is you can throw over twice, and after that, if you don't get an out,
it's twice per plate appearance.
Per plate appearance, right? Thank you.
And it's not a balk the third time. It's a
balk the third time if you don't retire the guy.
Correct. You have to get an out.
You can take a third shot at it, but if the guy's not out, then he gets second or third, as it were. And for those wondering, you need to have that rule for the pitch timer to work, because if you don't have that rule, the pitcher can just step off whenever he wants.
And that was something that I think AAA and AA didn't have that rule at the beginning of the year, and they realized pretty quickly that was the loophole to get around it, was you just step off.
Which this is why you test these rules in the minors, right? That's exactly why.
Well, it's also, I don't think when you mentioned the 15, 20 seconds,
it is longer, I think, right?
That's what I was about to say is in the minors, it's 14 and 19. So it's actually a second longer already.
Yep. Which I think is correct. Yeah. I think that's correct. It did feel a bit quick, especially beginning of the year. Well, they
got used to it. I mean,
they got used to it, but it's like, I think like with MLB, it's just a little bit different. I'm cool with making it a shade longer. I'm fine with that. And I thought that was the right move. The bigger bases, first, second, and third are now, instead of being 15 inches square, they're 18 inches square, which they're selling as a player safety thing, which is dumb. The point isn't player safety. The point is more steals. I guess that's part of it.
I disagree. I think it's also a player safety thing. Like, I haven't seen a single collision in a minor league game this year on the bases.
How many collisions on the bases had you seen prior?
I mean, you see them on occasion, not very frequently, but like
that's what I'm kind of saying.
I think it saying it's like a fake safety thing I disagree. I think
I didn't mean fake. I didn't say mean it as like fake. What I meant is like, so here's the one issue I've had with the rules is how MLB is marketing them. Marketing the bigger bases as a safety thing. I get why they think they should do that, but to me, the primary reason you do it is to increase stolen bases. I don't think it's going to have an impact on like ground balls, because I think you're going to get ground. In theory, the first baseman is 3 inches closer, or not 3 inches. Yeah, I guess 3 inches closer to the throw. So that's going to factor in. I don't think the base is closer to the plate. So that, the kind of bang bang plays, you maybe get more of them going in the defense's way. But to me, the thing is, the reason you do that is to increase stolen bases and put a more exciting product on the field. That's the same thing that you get with the pitch timer. It's the same thing you get with limiting pickoff moves. And stolen bases are way up in the minor leagues.
Well, no, the pitch timer thing is just to shorten the games, though. I don't think it's necessarily to create a more exciting product.
I agree with that. No, and if that's what I apologize if that's what it made it. That's what it sounded like I said. I just saying that is part of what they're going for. I agree. The pitch clock, the clear reason that you do that is pace of play. And that's my other problem I have with it, is like they're advertising it as like the average minor league 9-inning game time was reduced by 26 minutes this year. And it's like, I had someone tweeting at me like, I don't want less baseball for my money. And I get that. But to me, the problem is like, I don't want 4 minutes to go by having watched 4 pitches, all of which were taken. Like, let's move the game along, right?
As someone who's been to, I don't know, a lot of minor league games this year, everyone is going to love the pitch clock.
I wholeheartedly agree.
If you're a fan, you're going to love the pitch clock. If you don't like the pitch clock, give it a chance. You're going to love it. Like, it's not going to create like 90, 60-minute games. Like, games are still going to be like 2.5 hours, which is a perfectly manageable time. What it's going to do is it's going to eliminate, like, when the game's 11-4 and they bring in Sawamura in relief and he takes 2 minutes between pitches. Like, that's not going to happen anymore. Like, that's the kind of stuff this is going to get rid of. And the result is going to be like, even those longer games are still going to be like 2.5 to 3 hours instead of 3.5 to 4 hours. Or 3 to 3.5 hours. Like, it's going to shave off, 20 minutes. I don't think it'll shave off as much time as the minors, but I could see like 15 to 20 minutes per game, 20 to 25 minutes per game. And that is like, that's a substantial amount when, the attention span of younger people these days is they don't want to watch a 3.5 hour baseball game like a lot of people do, or like some people do. Like, they prefer it to be shorter. And this will make it so that there's the plays happen more frequently. Pitchers aren't going to be able to walk around the mound, in between batters for, an eternity. They're not going to be able to step off or throw over to first base 5 times. Like,
batters won't need
batters. Batters won't be able to step out. Like, and we're definitely going to see, like, obviously the players are not happy about it, which is not surprising at all.
They're pissed.
But that's why MLB designed this system where it didn't matter what the players thought. Like, it gave them the ability to do whatever they wanted with the rules. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I think the pitch clock one is good. I think
I got a tweet, Ian, and I think you'll agree with this too. Is, have you been in any games where a major leaguer was rehabbing?
Yeah, they don't have it. That's
what I'm saying. And it, like, that was so stark. So, like, I was at a Steven Strasburg start in Fredericksburg.
Yeah, it's awful.
The innings he pitched.
I saw Josh Taylor like sail. Like, it
bad. Put it in such stark contrast to the other inning. It's just, trust me, like, you'll like.
I mean, I was at 7-inning games this year that were over in like just over an hour. Like, it was not going to happen in MLB because of commercials and everything. But
commercials,
But like, there's going to be, the games are going to be, it's going to be easier to follow. It's going to be like more. I'll give you an example. Like, when I'm like taking notes between, there'll be pitchers where I don't have time to like write down something in between pitches because they just get it and throw it immediately. Like, things like that. That's good in my opinion. And I mean, we're definitely going to see players like getting mad, and there's going to be some automatic balls and automatic strikes in big situations at the beginning of next year.
Yep.
But I will say, like, having seen it this year, at the beginning of the season, you saw it. I would probably see like 1 or 2 per game. By the end of the season, I was seeing like one infraction per, 2 weeks of games I would go to, like, 1 per, 5 or 6 games. Like, it was very infrequent.
I only went to a handful of games and I didn't see one.
Like, at the beginning of the season, I saw a lot. Like, there were multiple games I went to with multiple where people were like striking out and stuff. But yeah, by the end of the season, like, I think I've seen 1 since like July. So
they learned. Yeah.
I think that's something they'll get used to. The shift changes, which I don't know if you described them yet.
So I didn't. And let me just say them. So they have like the cone that they're putting behind second base, right? Is that how they're doing it? The pizza slice, where 2 infielders have to be positioned on either side of second base when the pitch is released, and all 4 infielders must have both feet within the infield when the pitcher is on the rubber. So no, just shifting a guy into the outfield.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one because I've seen this like High A Greenville, the High A League had this rule. And I think Double A did too, right?
I think they added it in the second half.
I don't think fans will notice it. That's my biggest takeaway, is that like it's not going to change the way you watch the game or anything. It seems like the players are mad, and I kind of get it. And I'm not sure how I feel about it, like impacting the strategy of the game. That's the issue for me, is I think that it wasn't necessary. Like, I think they could have accomplished what they were going for with either one of these things, with either doing like no one on the outfield dirt or only 2 guys on each side of the base. Having both of them seems like overkill to me.
I don't think they needed to do either.
Well, I don't think they needed to do either, but I think they went to the most extreme, which was interesting to me. Because I think I do think the players are valid in this complaint that, like, a lot of guys, if you've watched them, if you go to games live, you'll see the positioning of the infielders. They will start on the grass deliberately. And it's like they want to get their feet active and be on, like, be moving before the pitch, and they will move on to the dirt, as the pitch is being delivered. Things like that aren't allowed anymore. And that's going to be interesting how, guys adjust to that they have to start, in a different position, for example.
It's interesting because I forget, someone tweeted, and I don't have the tweet. The rules on where the dirt is are, I think, kind of loose. Like, I don't think it's uniform. So I almost wonder if you'd like, our park's going to push the dirt back.
Well, no, but I think there's enough of like a rule that it won't be like, it can't be exploited that heavily, basically. But yeah, I don't know if this is necessary. I think as Baseball America did a great study on it, they showed that it didn't really change like the outcome of balls in play. So I don't think it's going to change things that much. What I do think it will change, though, is I think that it puts a bigger premium on athleticism, specifically at up the middle positions. Like, your second baseman is going to have to cover a lot more ground than they did before. And same thing with your shortstop. And then also, I think your outfielders are going to have to. So I think that, for example, like the Red Sox with Trevor Story at second base are really well positioned to be ready for this.
Yep. Which, by the way, he's not moving back to shortstop.
No, he doesn't have the arm to play shortstop. Yeah. But I also think, like, in free agency, it makes someone like Dansby Swanson or Carlos Correa more appealing of a target because of their defensive ability. Similarly, I think it's also could be contributed why the Red Sox, obviously I think the Hernandez signing happened before this was announced, but they knew this was coming. Like, Tom Werner was on the committee, so they knew this was going to happen. But like, having someone with his defensive ability in center field is, I think, important as this. And same thing, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with right field defensively for next season. Because you won't have a second baseman playing way out there against left-handed hitters anymore. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think that one is going to have like more long-term implications in terms of just like team roster construction and how players are viewed than the pitch clock one. I think the pitch clock one, like, by the old guys, the old vets who have never pitched with it are going to be upset about it, and they'll eventually get used to it, and we'll stop hearing about it by halfway through the year. Most of the young guys who are used to pitching with it that have dealt with it in the minors, and like, if you look, I think Red Sox stats put out like the time between pitches for certain players on the Red Sox, and most of the young guys are already under the timing, there. So it doesn't matter.
On an average, at least on an average.
So yeah, I think that that will kind of, there'll be complaints for the first couple of months, and then everyone will just kind of get over it. The other one, I think, is the bigger, is going to be kind of have more of an impact, and not necessarily on like the outcomes of games or the batted ball like data, but on just how you construct your team, because you're going to want more, more range in the infield positions. And I think it puts more of a premium on defense.
Yeah, and it's almost funny because it's like it's returning it to where it was like, not 5 years ago, but 10 certainly, back before shifting was this prevalent, right? Like you didn't have this many guys being shifted this heavily, and second base was really just more of a defensive premium position than I think what it's turned into. So yeah, like I'm with you. I'm interested to see how it affects different teams' constructions and what they do with guys like Emmanuel Valdez at second base. Is he more likely to get a look in left now? Like, or is he more of a liability at second, or do you just roll with it? It's interesting. It's interesting. I guess the other news today, Ian, was not today. The news previous to today was that the MLB Players Association was starting the process, and we won't get into it here just because we really don't need to. Starting the process to try and add minor league baseball players to the union, or is it that the MLBPA will represent minor leaguers? Today, MLB announced that they are going to voluntarily recognize the MLBPA as the union for the minor leaguers, which is, again, huge. We've been consistent here on the show about minor league pay, about conditions in the minors and that kind of thing. And look, if you're one of the folks who's going to play with, well, they're getting to play a kid's game. Like, I like the sport of baseball. I want baseball to be attractive for the best athletes to come play. I don't want baseball to be like, hey, you want to come play in our game? You're going to have to deal with making wages below the poverty line until you make MLB. And, before this year, good luck finding a house to live in when we promote you midweek in July and you have to break in the beginning of July, you just paid your rent. Now you have to break your lease and go find somewhere to live in your new city. Have fun. It was insane to me. Big first step this year with teams being required to provide housing for every minor leaguer. Teams being, I think, allowed or starting to pay players for extended spring training, which they didn't pay for before, which was insane to me. Absolutely nuts. But yeah, I think this is a huge positive. The fact that minor leaguers are going to have a seat at the table is huge. I don't know, Ian, what the upshot is going to be. We don't know what the MLPA is going to try and bargain for. I think is going to be one of the interesting things to watch for.
Well, they
obviously
can't. I mean, the thing is that, like, what are they really can't do anything. I don't think will it have an impact before the next CBA? Like,
probably. Well, so the CBA is between the MLBPA and MLB.
Right. So,
but my question, and we're going to have to ask this when we get a guest on, is like, the MLBPA at the time represented Major League Baseball players. It did not represent minor league baseball players. So does the CBA apply to them? I don't know that the answer is yes.
What are they going to? Yeah, but I feel like they can't just go to MLB and be like, all right, we want this, this, and this for minor leaguers now that they're in the union. MLB's going to be like, okay, what are you giving us? We don't need anything.
They can demand a CBA.
I guess
if they're collectively bargaining, potentially. I don't know that this is the case. I'm just saying, like, it absolutely could be the case that, now that they're represented by a union, they go to MLB and say we have, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. It's hard to know what's going to happen.
Correct. I agree. And so that was the point I was making is like, are they going to? Surely they're going to advocate for them getting paid more, no question. But what I'm curious about is like what happens to like the standard minor league player contract. What happens to like, it's interesting what happens with like 40-man rosters now that you've gotten over the hurdle of minor leaguers not being in the union, and expanding the 40-man roster would create new members of the union. If that's not a hurdle anymore, does the 40-man roster expand? Like we've talked about. I'm just very, are there going to be limitations on how much you can move certain guys around? I don't know. I'm very, very curious how this is going to play out. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a long run before we see what happens. It's not like we're going to know in a month how this is going to affect everything, but it's an intriguing development that I'm happy about. I think it's a positive for the game of baseball, and we'll have to see where it goes. Anything else you have on that one, Ian? No. All right. Let's move on to rankings. Our new rankings went up September the 1st. We didn't get to talk about them last week because we had a pretty full show, but I guess, Ian, not a whole lot of big movement, no big risers. I think, as I mentioned last time, I think the biggest riser this month was Chase Meadroff going from being unranked to 52nd in the rankings after what's been a very good debut for him. Has hit the ball very well. Interestingly, hasn't played any shortstop. He seems like he's going to be second base only, but he had the biggest jump. A couple of guys jumped 8 spots. Jacob Wallace from 59 to 50, and Alan Castro from being unranked to 53. Castro being an outfielder who was promoted from the Florida Complex League to Salem in that big group of players who went up to Salem. A bunch of guys did fall a fair amount. Gilberto Jimenez dropped 13 spots from 29 to 41. Connor Siebold dropped 12 spots from 12 to 23. And by the way, if these numbers don't make sense, this is accounting for the fact that Josh Winkowski graduated. So that's why I'm counting dropping from 12 to 23 as dropping 12 spots, because in theory, everybody moved up one when Winkowski graduated. And the other big dropper, I guess Chase Shugart falling out of the rankings as well. There were a few guys who fell out of the rankings, but Shugart was ranked the highest out of them. But anyway, any particular rises or falls that you see, Ian, that you want to mention or talk about specifically with any kind of detail?
Yeah, I mean, I as you said, I think it was pretty like chalk almost. I think the Siebold one will maybe get some attention, especially since his last couple of starts have been really good.
Yeah.
I think the reason, to me, the reasoning is that I'm not confident he can start for the Red Sox. I think it's more of a reliever profile. And if I'm not confident you can start, I don't think you belong in the top 20. I think that Siebold is kind of in a weird position where if he's going to be in the majors for the Red Sox, it's going to be in a bullpen role. Whereas, like, I think maybe he could start for like a second division team, but I just don't think he has the stuff to start for the Red Sox. Like, it's a fringy fastball. This changeup is good. It's a plus changeup, but breaking ball, sliders, average, maybe a 45. It's 45, 50, and then his curveball is below average. It's like a, steal a strike pitch. And I just don't see enough in that arsenal to profile as a starting pitcher for a team like the Red Sox that wants to contend year in and year out. And for me, that is why he fell pretty substantially. The projection to me was kind of redone.
The thing for me with Seabold is the maddening ups and downs of the stuff.
There's no consistency.
There's no consistency, and you can't start an MLB if in a given outing we don't know if we're getting 93 to 95 or 90 to 92. We don't know if you're going to have any feel for the changeup or if you're not going to have any feel for the changeup. We don't know if we're getting the average breaking ball or not. You just can't.
He doesn't have the margin for error for that to be that inconsistent.
Yeah, it's one thing if you're dropping from a plus to an above average or something, like fine, but it's when your stuff is already kind of on the cusp. That's the thing for me that I'm just kind of over at this point. And he's going to have stretches in Worcester where he's throwing really well, like he is right now. And that's going to keep happening.
I mean, I saw him in the span of a month. In one start, he was like 93 to 95, topping out at 96, I think. Mm-hmm. And then in the next one, he was 89 to 92. Like, those wild swings in velocity. As you said, I just don't see enough consistency for a starter. So to me, he belongs down in that like swingman, like bullpenny tier with like Frank German. Frank Hermann is the only one kind of left who's still in the minors with Kelly up. But like in that, that 20 to 35 range of guys. Yep.
And Seabold's had 2 IL stints this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's always injury risk with him. It's a small frame. He's a good athlete, but yeah, there's definitely, he's had some injury issues in the past too.
So it's the reliability in terms of being consistent or not being on the field. So that's why he had kind of the big fall. I guess, one guy that it's a small rise for me, but I would argue maybe say Don Rafaela being up from 8 to 6, jumping over Walter and Mata. And I'm very interested in discussing with you guys. I think the top 3 is going to be set so long as Bayo doesn't graduate, as we were kind of talking about before we recorded.
If he makes all his remaining starts, he's going to graduate.
Yeah, which I hope he doesn't,
because he has like 18 innings left, I think.
Yeah,
he's at 32 coming into tonight. No, he's definitely going to graduate because he was 32 coming into tonight. He was at 32 in the majors coming into tonight, wasn't he?
How many is he at tonight?
He threw 5 1/3 tonight, or 5 2/3.
Yeah. So
he's at 37, so he's got like 2 more starts.
Yeah. So he probably graduates, so he won't be in our rankings at the end of the season. So you go Meyer, Casas 1, 2. That's set in stone. What we do at that next tier, that for me is York, Blaze, Rafaela right now. I've already got Blaze above York personally. I'm interested in what we're going to wind up doing with Rafaela, like you said, whether changes to the rules in MLB make athleticism at more of a premium. And with Blaze and Rafaela, those are 2 athletes. I'm very much looking forward to that discussion.
There are also guys who could be like plus at least up the middle positions.
Yeah.
Like,
Rafaela is already
Rafaela to me is like a 70 center fielder. I think he could get to like 60 at shortstop. Blaze is potentially plus to better in center field. Like, it's hard to say now because he's played so few
we got to let him play.
But like, I've seen him play center field. It's great. And scouts who I talked to saw the FCL obviously have spoke glowingly about him in center field. So
yep, agreed.
Yeah, like he is a potential impact guy 2 ways. Yeah. I suspect Nick York will be 5th in the rankings by the offseason, would be my guess.
Who do you think will be? Are you expecting that Bayo graduates when you say that? Because okay. Yeah, I could see it. I really could see it.
Like, I'll say it. I'm going to have Rafaela and Blaze above York next month. And this is after seeing York for a week, thinking about it. I didn't do anything this month because I wanted to kind of, let it think about what I saw. And, I'm hoping see Rafaela again, but just kind of like get some more, just think about it more. But yeah, I think for the end of the season, York, I think he'll be okay at the plate long term, but I'm just not sure he has the impact ability of either of those guys.
I mean, I think he's got the ability if he gets the hit tool back. The problem for me is
but the
that
thing is, there's his like the ways he gets to being a 50 or 60 are a lot smaller than there's fewer ways for him to be an impact guy than Blaze or Rafaela. Like,
well, that's why we've got Blaze with the 8 ceiling, right? Is that he could be a true 5 tool player.
Yeah.
True 5 tools.
But like if York doesn't have
York has 1 plus tool.
If York doesn't have at least a 60 hit tool, yeah, there's not another plus tool.
No.
Whereas like Blaze legit could have 5 plus tools. And Rafaela, like, you could make a case for 3, like all the defensive tools plus speed.
Yep.
So the 2 defensive tools plus speed. Power, I would probably go like average-ish, and the hit is the question with him. Like, I'm not sure what it gets to.
I want to do a deep dive on his offense. Things like his, like looking beyond, slash line and home runs.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's going to be interesting to see
looking at the underlying metrics.
Yeah, what they ultimately end
because
up as.
we get asked, and I think there'll be emails about this. Maybe we should just cut this off. But it's like, well, if he's that good defensively, all he has to do is go up and play above average. Sorry, not above average, double plus defense. It's like, well, it's not that easy. Like, to the people who would say that, I was like, what were your thoughts in the times when Jackie Bradley wasn't hitting?
Yeah.
He was the starting center fielder and you were calling for them to, you were calling for his head.
It's also that you don't want to potentially inhibit his ability to develop offensively by rushing him to the big leagues because his defense is ready. Like, if you give him an extra year in the minors and it turns into that he ends up with like an average hit tool and average power versus you rush him and he doesn't ever gets that, like, that's a big difference in value. So obviously you want to wait. You want to give the bat as much time as possible to develop, which is why you don't rush him to the big leagues.
Yeah. I mean, look, Andrelton Simmons was able to be an 80 defender at shortstop with a pretty light stick. He was an 80 defender, right? Rafaela, I think Rafaela could get to an 8 in center field. I don't know if you disagree with that. I'm not saying I would project him there now, but like, if I came from the future 5 years from now and told you that Ceddanne Rafaela wins the Gold Glove in center field every year and he's considered an 8 defender, would you like?
No, I mean,
assume I was playing,
but also winning
Gold
Glove doesn't make you like an 80 defender. Like Andrew,
won
a Gold Glove and he's like a 40. So
that's why I said and became an 8 defender. But but I'm just saying, like, I could see that happening.
Right, but again, like, for him, there's a big range of outcomes. Like, if he's Jackie Bradley this year at the plate, like, we saw how that went with the fan base. Versus if he's like, peak Jackie Bradley at the plate hitting, 280 with 20 home runs. That's a big difference.
And to everyone who says, well, look at his line in Portland, I would then say to you, well, look at Jaron Duran's line in Worcester. Like, I don't care about a guy's minor league line necessarily. I want to look at the underlying metrics.
Well, I mean, like, look at like Alex Manelis in Greenville versus in St. Louis or Portland, or like Nico Cavadas is the same thing. Like, he gets up to Portland and he's still walking, but he's not hitting anywhere. He's not making anywhere near as much contact as he was before.
Whereas, Rafaela has had success in offense in Portland, but that's why I'm saying, like, there are plenty of guys who have success on offense in AAA and don't hit in the majors. So don't even, like, never mind AA. So I want to see how he hits in AAA, and I want to see how he hits in the majors.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously in Portland, he's hitting 271, 327, 506. Like, that's for his age as a 21-year-old, that's excellent.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, there's definitely
that's why he's ranked where he is.
There's underlying things, like, and I think another thing that people are going to realize when they see Rafael is, like, he's tiny. Like, Miguel Blaze is like the prototypical 6'3", like, athlete, looks the part. Rafaela is just like a little spark plug. Like, that type of frame, like, there's concerns about how you can, like, handle the rigors of playing 162 games with that type of frame. Like, especially given the pounding he's going to take with how good his defense is. Right. So, like, I mean, there's definitely, like, and if you've noticed, I'm like, he's really slowed down this season. Like August, like the first 4 months of the season, his OPSs 945, 953, 952, 868. All of those are excellent. August, his OPS dropped to 751. Which is still, he was 232, 317, 435. This month, it's down to 646. Like, I do wonder if there's some fatigue factor with that.
Well, he also missed the time after he got hit by the pitch on the hand, so we don't know how much that's.
But he was bad in August, or he was slowing down in August before.
Sure. But I'm just saying, like, that's something to keep in mind too.
So, like, that's the thing is, like, you can't like, that's another thing I'm slightly concerned with him, is just his frame. I'm not sure how it could handle that. But regardless of what it is, like Rafaela is going to be in the big leagues in some capacity. It's just I'd rather be patient and see if he can get towards closer to his ceiling than rush him and just get like a defensive replacement.
Who do you want to talk about next? You pick one and then I'll pick one. And it doesn't need to be a player. It could be like a category of players or something if you wanted.
I think that the interesting ones to me is I think that the new guys, I think that a few of them, like
rookies,
the draftees from this year.
Okay.
I think it's worth talking about. Like, I think Mikey Romero, like he's looked fantastic.
He can
like
hit,
his
man.
swing is so nice. And I've just been very impressed with what I've seen from him, both like obviously on video only, but also like looking at some of the advanced data of his, and it's really impressive. And I think that this draft class with him, Anthony, who has also looked pretty good, Brooks, Brannon, Coffee, like there's a lot of interesting guys here. And I think it's just going to be a very fun class. And I think it's going to be interesting kind of seeing where they end up at the end of this season rankings wise, because I have a feeling that they could, like a few of those guys could move up a little more from where they even are right now.
Yeah. Romero's at 9 right now, and I could see him as high as 7. Although if Bayo graduates, maybe 6.
Yeah.
I could see that. Anthony. So Romero in Salem is hitting 333 with a 350 on base and a 590 slugging, which I did not expect. But he's got 3 triples.
And what we need to mention with Salem is Salem's park is probably is massive
sure,
compared to what he's ever played in before.
Sure.
Like that ballpark is insanely big, and so
super small sample size too. This is 8 games. This isn't counting tonight. I don't know if he's in the lineup or not.
Yeah, I don't know. But
Anthony has struggled a little bit. He's hitting 207, 294, 276. But he's not he's only got 4 Ks, so it looks like it might be bad ball and play luck, honestly. In 29 at bats to have only 4 strikeouts.
It's definitely impressive considering that was the concern coming in with him, was swing and miss.
Yeah. I'm liking those 2 at the top of this draft class. I'm liking, I don't know if Anthony will move up for me. I think we've got him pegged right where he's at 11 now. If Bayer graduates, he'd be at 10.
Yeah, I don't know how much those. I think though that it's just they've kind of reinforced that I'm happy with where he had them initially slotted. Whereas there have definitely been draftees who, after seeing them, I was like,
oh crap, yeah.
There's certain ones that stand out who I'm not going to mention. But,
I know who you're talking about.
Sure. There's there are times where you've seen guys and just been like, yikes, that's not going to play. And these guys don't fit that mold. They all look, all the top guys look pretty interesting.
Yep.
So I think that. Yeah.
It's nice when it's the guys who got the bonuses and should be the ones standing out, right? Like when it's Romero and Anthony are the real standouts, and Brandon had a good 15 plate appearances, great in the FCL. Cutter Coffee struggled at first, but he turned it around once he got through his initial schneid. So I'm happy with that group right now. I guess where I thought you were going to go, Ian, and I guess I'll go there now so you can talk about them a little bit. Is this the kind of the pitchers who moved up from the complex to Salem, and Luis Perales is up 4 this month from 24 to 19. Again, that's taking into account 1 spot for Winkowski. And Elmer Rodriguez Cruz is up 5 from 34 to 28. Again, accounting for that extra spot. A couple of guys lower in the minors developing some starting pitching down there, which they had last year. It seemed like there was basically Wickelman Gonzalez down in that level and a bunch of kind of back of the rankings, throw your hands up types. Now it seems like there's more of that potential sort of impact type arm that we're seeing getting developed down there and moving up. So that's nice to see those guys moving up. I don't know if you've got anything to add on those 2. And I'm sure
I agree. I'm the high man on Perales, and I just think that there's just so much upside. His numbers, if you look, he's 19 years old in Salem right now, and he's got 16 strikeouts and 10 innings. He's got 11 walks, which is obviously, that's not ideal. But
I think most of them might have come in his last start though, because he kind of fell apart.
He had no walks.
Oh, he had no walk. No, the last start was all of the hits because he was basically getting like
He got BABIP'd hard. And
he got BABIP'd, but he was also getting ambushed early in the count and getting BABIP'd.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a long way to go developmentally, and
Sure.
this is why I think they're handling him with kid gloves almost, is because just that archetype of prospect is just very, very low likelihood of success. Like,
sure, yeah,
Dominican right-handers who aren't very big, that's just the track record with them is it's poor. I mean, we've seen it with like Anderson Espinosa, I think is the best example. Like Espinosa, was a consensus. Wasn't he in the top 25 of those prospect lists coming out of the Greenville when he was traded?
No, he wasn't that high yet. Was he?
He got really high.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up. You keep talking.
But anyway, like he was that type of like, he had a potential 70 breaking ball, like plus fastball. Yeah, he was 20 in 2017. He was 21, 25, 24 coming into the 2017 season.
Right.
Yeah. I'm looking at BREF.
No, I know. That's what I pulled up too. Yeah, I mean, so 20 was that, but that was the year he got traded. Okay. Yeah, he got traded. No, he got traded in 2016. So
2016, he was 1939.
Right.
71.
I was thinking when you said coming out of Greenville, like when he made that one start in 15. So that's that's on me.
No.
Yeah,
but right. Like he was
post trade, he was definitely
seen as a potential top like 25, 30 prospect in all of baseball. And he just like injuries and set him back, obviously. Like, and there's just a lot of cases like that where guys look really promising in the minors. But I just think that paralysis stuff is just unlike pitchers we've seen in a while from his age in the system. Like talking to scouts, like they said he was the best pitching prospect in the FCL. He's potentially like a plus, like 70 fastball and two above average secondaries to plus. Like that's the stuff you dream on and what you look for in a starting pitching prospect. He's a good athlete. But yeah, he's got a long way to go and he's super young and he hasn't pitched very much. And that's, there's a lot of risk, which is why even with that good of stuff, which you could make the case that he has, better stuff than guys ahead of him. Well, I mean, he does have better stuff than guys ahead of him in the rankings, like Chris Murphy, guys 100%. Like that. But there's 100%. Just a lot of risk, which is why he's outside the top 10 for me still. But I just think that because of his upside, I think it warranted pushing towards the top 10 at least.
Yeah, you've got him at 13. I've got him at 19. To me, it's that risk, and I'm going to have to take a long, hard think on where to put him in the season end rankings. Because, like I'm looking at it, and it's like I have to account for that risk. And it's like, would I take Thaddeus Ward over Luis Perales right now? Ugh. Probably not.
I don't think that's even a question to me.
But it's like I also have to account for the fact that like there's blowout risk. He has not pitched in the fourth inning of a game in his professional career yet. Like, which is but I know you shake your head, but like the guys in the DSL were going for it.
But I don't care about that honestly until you get to like AA.
I do. I absolutely do.
I don't think that matters until you get to AA. Like,
I think it matters because I want to see how you hold.
If you're still throwing 3 inning stints in like AA, yeah, that's a red flag. Or even in full season ball. But like when a guy's in short season ball, I'm perfectly fine with handling him with kid gloves.
Well, he's now in Salem. He's not in short season ball anymore.
Well, yeah, but we know why. But he also threw 0 innings last year.
He also has an innings, and that's what I'm saying. And that's part of why
I'd rather see him go every single, make a start every 5 days for an entire season than throw 5 innings for 10 starts and then get shut down. Like,
yeah, I mean, clearly there's an innings limit going on there, right?
Yeah. There has to be. Like, didn't throw last year.
He threw 1 game, and I think
was it 1 game? Okay,
he threw 1 game, and I think he went 1 inning.
Yeah,
so he's barely thrown. I get that point, and kind of that realization has made me kind of rethink my position on that. I would love to see him go into the 4th inning of a game. Like, just let him do it once, please.
I don't think they will. So
no, I know. I think I'm screwed, but I'm just saying, like, so I personally, I need to weigh how to think of that.
Yeah. Well, I think for me also, it's like, like we were like, and Wickelman Gonzalez, I think is worth mentioning too, because he's someone who he's pitched really well since he was promoted to Greenville. I saw him. I was impressed by him. He also jumped a few spots in the rankings.
Yep. If we can talk about him because I edited your report on him last night and I had some thoughts, but like I think that like if you're my thing, and I've said this to you, is if you're comfortable putting like Gonzalez in position X, I don't see why you wouldn't be comfortable putting Perales there, because I think Gonzalez has a lot of the same questions. And I understand like he's thrown 5 inning
outings, and we've seen what his velocity looks like in those things. But I think there's enough reliever risk with him that it balances out with like the upside Perales possession, because Perales raw stuff wise is better than Gonzalez.
Yeah, I agree.
And so if you're willing to like put Gonzalez, if you're comfortable putting him like just outside the top 10, I think that you can make the case that Perales obviously get there a different way.
Sure.
But there's enough promise there that I think it's worth putting him there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Gonzalez at 15. So I've got him a little bit ahead of Perales. I was happy to read your report where when I saw Gonzalez earlier this year, and this is something that you had noted previously.
Well, yeah, because sorry, go ahead.
No, well, he did this in spring training, but he did this when I saw him in Salem. His velocity was already starting to dip in the third, right? Like noticeably. We're talking like 2 ticks off the fastball, probably. So that was an issue. There were a lot of moving parts in the mechanics. Like when you edited the report that I had updated, you deleted a bunch of stuff and I've seen video.
Yeah, it's so much better now.
He has cleaned up. He had this thing where he would step to the left towards first base with his non-pivot leg, and then as he was pivoting his right pivot leg, he's a right-hand, right? Yeah, pivoting his right foot for the pivot, his left leg was coming up, so he was doing this weird like jump move.
Yeah,
it was weird. It was very.
He has streamlined his mechanics in a way that is very impressive. Because coming out of spring training, and we didn't really talk about it on here, I was not impressed. And talking to people who saw him in more different starts than I did, that was like the consensus is it was like basically like, what is going on? Because his stuff, he was like 91 and 95, which the velocity I'm not as concerned about, but the body was not looking good. His delivery was all over the place. Like there was no consistency with it. It looked very relieverish. And he had like scrapped his slider for this like weird slurvy breaking ball that I didn't like at all. Didn't really like. And that was like, there were a lot of red flags, things that had me concerned. And the Salem performance didn't, there were some issues there at the beginning of the season, but he seemed to have kind of figured it out. And I think Brian Abraham talked about it in the article we were referencing last week with Chad Jennings, how they've been really impressed with like the in-season adjustments he's made. And I think that's why they promoted him to Greenville, even though he had struggled a bit. His overall numbers in Salem, I don't know if you have them up, were not that impressive. But
he was looking better lately.
Yeah, but I think that's why they were comfortable promoting him. And I think obviously his performance has proved them right, because he's been excellent since he got to Greenville. I don't know if you have that up, but
I'm grabbing it right now. So Wickelman, Wickle.
I have it if you don't.
I've got it right here. So I mean, in Salem in 81 innings, he had like a 4.54 ERA. He did strike out 98 in 81 innings, but he also walked 48 guys in 81 innings.
Yeah.
But in Greenville in 4 starts, I mean, he was our pitcher of the month for August.
Yeah.
17 innings, 2.65 ERA. So that's 2 full runs off the ERA, 23 strikeouts to 6 walks. So his walk rate has dropped from 5.3 per 9 to 3.1 per 9.
Yeah.
Not great, but it's also a lot more acceptable. Well, the K has ticked up. No home runs. Not that home runs were really an issue. He only had 2 in Salem.
Yeah, he doesn't give up a lot of home runs. He's still hard to square up.
One of them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, looking at what he did even in July in Salem,
the change
kind of got hit.
The change for me was during the All-Star break. There's that 2-week break since July 26th, which was when they came back from the All-Star break. He's 37 innings, 23 hits, 13 walks, 46 strikeouts, 2.43 ERA, 176 opponents batting average is really impressive, and 2.14 opponents slug. So he's just not getting squared up at all since then. And I think that that seems where kind of the shift started for me.
Did he work on something during the break, or did it just got better? I mean, that's really
yeah, I mean,
it.
The delivery was just a lot more streamlined, as I said. Like he was more consistent with it. He was able to repeat it. I like the way that in the outing I saw, he only went 4 innings, but he had 8 strikeouts. No, I saw 4 innings, 5 strikeouts, excuse me. The thing that impressed me was he didn't really have good feel for his changeup at the beginning, but and he was still able to succeed with, limited feel for that pitch. But as the game went on, it came back to him. And I like that when you're able to have the confidence in a pitch that even if you don't have good feel for it early, you're like, I'm going to keep throwing this and I'm going to get there. And that's what he did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny too. In Greenville, he's actually getting kind of unlucky. His average on balls in play against is 342. So he, in theory, could be even better. All right. Well, that's the rankings. If y'all have any questions, hit us up at podcast@soxprospects.com. We're going to go to emails now. So hit us up. We want to talk about what you want to hear about And thank you to everyone who has been sending in all of these emails. We are getting bombarded with emails, which is awesome. So we've got a few for you all for this episode. Our first one comes from Crawford, not Cutter Crawford. His first name's Crawford. And he says, which prospects / recent grads do you see contributing next year? So it's just kind of a list, Ian, of guys. And maybe I'll kind of put it up on the screen for you so you can look at it, but I'll read it first. He thinks, I mean, it's a lot of guys. Rather than go through this whole list, Ian, who do you think are the key contributors of guys who have not debuted yet in MLB to next year's MLB team? Because just reading a list is not good audio. So, I mean, thanks for, he has a whole list of like,
of guys who could
10
like,
guys. Yeah. I mean, guys who he thinks are likely maybe and long shot contributors next year.
So I think that there's two that stand out for me
who have not debuted in MLB.
Yeah. And it's Brian Mata and Frank Hermann.
God, Mata hasn't debuted.
No,
that's right. Yep. Okay.
Because I don't really see a position player except for Rafaela, but I don't think he'll come up until the second half of the season. So I'm not sure how much of an impact he could have.
He only has an impact, I think, if there are injuries.
Right. So that's why, and there's no other position player I think that fits that criteria.
Sure.
Whereas looking at the pitchers, I think that there's a chance that both of those guys could be, important pieces in the bullpen, or maybe with Mata, maybe as a starter at some point next year. Given like what we saw this season, you need pitching depth. Mm-hmm. And I don't think either will start in the big leagues. I think that's pretty clear, especially given they're not calling Hermann up as of now to even give him like a look this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could happen.
Well,
it still could happen, but
I still think it could.
But I think it would be a stretch to be counting on him or penciling him in to make the opening day bullpen.
Sure.
I'd rather have him be as like that, I'd rather have him in like the Tyler Danish role as the guy who starts in, I don't know if Danish started in Worcester, but you know what I mean? Like the guy who starts in Worcester who
he did. He was a minor league free agent.
He's the first guy to come up if someone gets hurt. And I think he started on the roster opening day because of injuries. But you know what I mean by that. Like the guy who, first guy up if someone gets hurt.
Walden, Brazier, that guy that started on the
I'd rather have someone with Hermann's upside in that role.
Yeah. I mean, looking at next year's pitching staff, it's really interesting. Because you've got at least one starting spot open, if not two.
I think it's two for sure.
I mean, because you've got Sale, Pivetta, Bayo coming back. I don't know what role they're going to give Crawford. I don't know what they're not. I don't think they're going to start
as a starter.
They're not going to start Winkowski there. Do you keep Paxton? That's interesting.
The way I was kind of mapping it out, and we'll get into this more with the offseason, is I personally think they need to. I would like to see them go get like an ace, like a Rodon, Jacob deGrom, like someone like that. And the way I look at it is I would be comfortable going into the season with like Sale as my number 2, like Eovaldi as my number 3, or
you want to re-sign Eovaldi too?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, assuming he's healthy. And then Pivetta as my number 4 and Bayo as my number 5. Like
I'd be cool with that.
That would be like something I would be comfortable with. And I think that if you bring back Paxton, fine. Like maybe you have like a Paxton Bayo as like the 5th starter.
Sure.
The other one is, maybe you push Bayo down just for a couple weeks to start the season in the minors, or frankly, Sale could get hurt again.
Exactly.
You're gonna need more.
You're gonna need way more than 6 starters, especially if you have a rotation with Sale and Paxton.
Right, but like I think that they need to bring on someone ahead of them, and I don't see an internal solution though, where I wouldn't be comfortable running out an opening day rotation with like Bayo, Winkowski, and like someone else from internal, like Siebel. I don't see any chance that happens.
Has the Garrett Whitlock starting pitcher ship sailed?
I mean, I don't know. That's the great question. Because I think the Houck starting pitcher ship has sailed. I don't think that's happening.
No question. And I saw someone saying like it was a mistake for the Red Sox to put Houck in the rotation, not Houck, Whitlock in the rotation. That's not what got him hurt. Like, I don't know. I'm not ready to let go of that.
No, I think I mean, I don't want to put words for them, but I'm wondering if their reasoning was the impact it had on the bullpen was why it was a mistake, not why what got him hurt.
No, that's probably true.
Because if that's the case, you can make a case for that. I think that the impact it had on the bullpen. Yeah.
Say you've got a 5-man rotation, which it's a 8-man bullpen, right? For 13. That's how the numbers work. Yeah. So 8-man bullpen. Say you go Whitlock, Houck, Schreiber, Barnes is 4 definites.
Yeah.
Probably Zach Kelly.
I think so. I think he's going to earn his
5.
way in there with he had another good outing tonight. I think he's going to pitch his way in there.
Yeah. So that's 5.
So you want 2
You've got
lefties,
an acquisition.
and you're going to need 2 lefties, which I would love Strom to come back, but if he wants to be a starter, no thanks. I don't want any part of a guy converting like that.
No, and I mean, I think they need to get a big ticket relief pitcher.
Yeah, I think they need to get like a closer.
Yes.
But yeah, like I just don't see a lot of room for internal options,
But I see, well, that's still 6 if they get 1 lefty, right? So you got 2 spots in that bullpen. They've still got Brazier under contract. They've still got Danish. They still got Josh Taylor. They still have Darwinzon Hernandez. They still have Edward Bizzardo.
I would be shocked if half of those guys are still in the organization on opening day next year.
Agreed. I 100% agree. But I'm just saying, like, who's blocking Hermann if he has an unbelievable camp?
Just that they need 2 lefties.
You can still get the 2 lefties with.
Well, no, but that would be assuming one of those guys is your closer. You can't add an external closer because you only have 8 relief spots and you listed 5 righties.
Whitlock, Houck, Schreiber, Barnes, Kelly is 5 righties.
And we're assuming 2 lefties and a big ticket closer. That's
it. I'm saying one of the lefties is the big ticket guy they get.
Oh, I don't think that's looking at the free agents. That's not out there.
Maybe they make a trade.
Oh, I
don't know. I'm just saying, like,
I personally wouldn't want a left-handed closer because if you're only going to have 2 lefties in your bullpen, I'd rather have the ability to use them whenever I want.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know the construction of the bullpen next year. Yeah, so you probably push Hermann down to start the year, and he comes. I mean, but he's going to get out of the 40s, so that option is there. I don't think it's crazy, and especially if there are injuries, I think that there's definitely a route for him. How did we get on this? There was an email.
Well, no, that was the question. It was
right. No. I'm saying no. That's what I'm saying. That was the email. I forgot that's how we got there. I mean, some of the other names on here, Mata, Walter. I guess Walter.
I think he could be like that healthy 8th, 9th starter, like Seabold was this year. That if everything goes wrong, he's the guy that you potentially have as that depth arm, that comes up in midseason and fills those innings. I mean, we saw this year they came into the season with like 8 or 9 guys and they had to use all of them. So
right.
I think Walter could be in that role.
Walter could definitely.
I don't think he'd be the first guy, but I think he could be, a few,
if he's healthy,
since he's missed half the season. But yeah, he could be in that group.
If he's healthy, yeah. He hasn't pitched since June, man.
He's out for the year. Yeah. Backs are bad.
I think that's it. I mean, some of the guys he has on here, he has Rafaela as a long shot. He has York as a long shot. I think it's a long shot that York gets to Worcester.
Yeah, I think he'll start in Portland and then we'll go slowly from there.
Yeah. But thank you for the question, Crawford. Our next email comes from Josiah, who says, this is a purely academic question, but if you could build a pitcher kind of like a video game and got 3 pitches to give him, what 3 pitches do you choose? Do they change depending on fastball velocity? Do they change starter versus reliever? Interesting question, Ian. You got thoughts on that?
I mean, it's fastball, breaking ball, like changeup or splitter. I think that's pretty like the standard.
Well, be specific on breaking balls. Breaking balls is a big category.
Well, but it depends because like the type of breaking ball someone throws is largely dependent on like what kind of arm slot do they have, how quick is their arm, like things like that, or where's your release, where are you consistent releasing it, like things like that are going to determine whether you're more of a slider person or a curveball person. So
world is your oyster. You get to pick the arm slot.
Well, I mean, then I'm probably see, but this is like you can create like alien pitchers, which are not realistic.
Yeah, he could be green, sure.
What? No,
he's
that
an
was
alien.
really bad. But what I meant by that is like, yeah, I could create like a submariner who throws like 100 with like a nasty curveball. Like that's never going to happen in real life. Like,
right.
So like, yeah, no, but it's to me, it's, yeah, you get a fastball. I want a changeup or a splitter with good separation from the fastball. And then depending on the arm slot, higher arm slot is more advantageous to a curveball, lower, you're more likely to see a slider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the pretty standard answer.
Starter, reliever, do you care? I don't think it really matters.
To me in a reliever, I don't necessarily need a third pitch if my first 2 are good enough. Whereas in a starter, you 100% need 3 pitches, in my opinion. Well, I mean, yes, not just my opinion. That's kind of pretty yeah. So I think that in the bullpen, I would rather have like 270 pitches than like 350s or whatever, or things like that. But in a starter, you got to have three, whereas a reliever, you can get away with two. And with the reliever, like, I don't really care if it's a changeup or a slider or a curveball or whatever, as long as it's just, you need just a premium out pitch, one of them.
Like it. Ian, our next question is for you, specifically for you. They called you out. I am nobody. And it's from our friend John Berman, believe it or not. So John Berman chiming in with another question. Thanks for the email, John. He says, hey guys, the first one went so well, I thought I would try another. Ian, can you walk us through one of your scouting trips? What exactly do you do during each game? Where do you sit? What do you do different things in different games? Radar gun and stopwatch? Do you get there early, stay late, chat up officials and scouts? Any details would be genuinely fascinating. And then he says, thank you for all the hard work you put into this over the years. I shudder to think how many hours I've spent on your site. I'm still pretty sure Craig Hansen is going to be an awesome reliever. Don't we all? But yeah, I think this is a good question. Ian, walk us through a day in the life. Get out of bed.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So a normal day would be, let's just say, you go to the ballpark.
Check your fantasy baseball. Oh, sorry. No.
Yeah, no, we don't play fantasy baseball here. I go to the ballpark, try to get there for BP if I know it's happening, which I'll usually be able to find out. And if it's happening, it usually starts around, a couple hours before the game, let's just say. I'll get there for BP, and for BP, I'm usually trying to watch it side on angle, which can be tough depending on the hitting groups. It's nice
I hate when there are a bunch of lefties and righties.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice when the guys I want to see are like in separate groups or they're same sided hitters.
Yep.
Because then I can, just sit on one side versus having to move around. Or what I'll usually do is I'll like watch a full round from one side, then I'll flip to the other if it's like intertwined. So that happens. And then after BP, I'll usually watch the away BP, which is usually the second one, just because there's nothing else to do.
Right. What else are you going to do?
Yeah. So that happens. Then fast forward to the game. I'll sit behind the plate, in the scout seats. You'll see me back there. You've probably seen me in the minor league broadcast before, not realized, which is the goal. But yeah, I'll sit
unless
back
you were
there.
at the game where you got harassed by the canaligator.
Yeah, that was a little. Well, that was a small section, so there wasn't a lot of room.
Right.
But yeah, so I'll be sitting behind home plate. I won't be there the entire game. I do move around. Depends. Like it really depends a lot on who's pitching or what I'm trying to see. Like, for example, on like a Wilkelman Gonzalez start, I'm probably going to be paying closer attention to the pitchers than necessarily, let's say, if it's a different pitcher.
Sure.
And that might limit my ability to move around. So if it's a pitcher,
or just a guy you've seen a bunch of times before.
Yeah, if it's a guy I've seen a bunch, I'll be more willing to, like, when the hitters are up, I'll go watch a side view because I know I won't have to rush back to get behind the plate if it's, I want to see that. Or frankly, I'll, go to a side view for a pitcher like Gonzalez. I'll go watch him from the side for an inning to see what it looks like versus for some other guys. I don't think that's as important necessarily, but yeah, so I'll start behind the plate, and usually I watch the first few innings behind the plate. Usually for pitchers, it's like once around the order. And then for hitters, usually the first at bat for each of them, just to kind of establish a baseline of what I'm seeing, get some velocities, get some times on hitters, just kind of see what the opposing pitcher looks like also, because obviously that can impact like your evaluation. As I think I talked about it last week, like if I'm seeing a knuckleballer, it's a lot harder to evaluate the hitters than if I'm seeing like a generic, guy throwing his mid 90s. But that does matter too. Like I want to know what the opposing pitcher's velocity is, because like there's a big difference if a guy's throwing, 95 to 98 or if he's throwing 90 to 92. So I'll do that for the first time around the order usually. And then the second time around for pitchers, sometimes I'll video from behind the plate just to get an inning of that, just have it, or I'll go watch from the side to kind of get a look at their sideways mechanics, see what the extension looks like, things like that. Same thing with hitters. Like I'll move over and watch them from the side view, kind of like on today, I put a video of Matthew Lugo hitting, looking at it from the side view, because I think you get a much better look at their swing, kind of like their load, the separation, and their swing from that angle.
No question.
And I like to get video from that. Yeah, I'd like to get video from that open side. So I'll usually do that with the hitter's second at bat. But sometimes it can be tough. Like a good example is this Greenville lineup. They had York leading off, Meyer hitting second, and then Lugo hitting third. So with that, there's not enough time, especially with the pitch clock, to go back and forth. So like what I would do is, in one inning, I would watch just the righties, and then the next time around, I would just be getting Meyer. So yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And then usually after the middle innings, I'll end up back behind the plate and just kind of watch the rest of the game there. So yeah, I'm pretty much most active from innings like 3 to 6 or 4 to 6, and then 1 to 3 and 7 to 9. I'm pretty much behind the plate. And then when the game ends, I get out of there. And in terms of just conversing with, yeah, I mean, if there's like scouts there I know or who want to talk, I will talk to them. But I'm not like, I kind of like the silence of it and just like I'm focused on what I'm doing. So often I'm kind of just like sitting there by myself watching the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not a big talker at games usually.
Yeah. I mean, with me, I take a little different tack where I'm mostly there trying to gather information. I'm jumping in on your question, but when the team is hitting, I'm going back and forth trying to get open side if I can. Again, it depends on the lineup. Sometimes you luck out and the lineup is really left-hand heavy. So I'll just mostly stay left-handed. And then next time through the order, I'll get the right-handers or vice versa. And then pitcher inning, if it's a starter I really care about, I'm charting every pitch versus, if it's a reliever or a starter that I don't care as much about, I'm just kind of doing a chart of velocities as I get them, being behind the plate, getting video. I think, the advent of phone video being high quality has really changed how I go about going to watch games.
Yeah, see, I rarely use my phone.
Yeah, I just use my phone because I like having it later to refer to.
Well, I do too, but that's why I use a real camera. So
yeah, sure. But for me, and it's like, it just reminded me that there's something I wanted to talk to you about a scouting report you updated where I went back and saw something from what I had videoed. So I find that to be useful. But that said, it's hard for me to just stay behind the plate. One thing that I've taken to doing is I print out a binder of our scouting reports on each guy on the roster, so that rather than having to take notes from scratch, which I find, it's overwhelming the amount of data that I could potentially write down. And I'll make check marks next to stuff. Like I'm not going to let it influence me necessarily, but it's like, there have been plenty of times where I've been like, wow, this guy's having trouble locating. The command is not great. And I look and it's issues with command. So I'll just throw a check next to it. Like, yep, saw it, agree. Or, we have a guy as, starting from the first base side of the mound. Oh, he's in the center now. We got to edit that, velocities obviously being the other big one. By the way, every stadium have TrackMan on the board, please.
Yeah, I mean, they should. Now, but the Red Sox are, I mean, in 2 of the 4 affiliates have it, so which is nice. But yeah, that's why you like the Greenville readings. You can't trust the stadium gun. It's not right. It's off.
Yeah, Fredericksburg's like that too. But where was I? Delmarva had it keyed to the TrackMan, I think.
Yeah, anyway, I also I don't like having the reports. Like I'll look them up on my phone if I need to.
Sure.
But I prefer to go in like a fresh approach each time. And then after the fact, I'll go back and look at what I had before.
Sure. And there's definitely merit to that too. I just find for what I'm doing, the other thing too is just, man, I'm like a gerbil when I'm at that. Just my attention is so easily drawn away.
Yeah.
Like a bat will end and I'll be like, I didn't watch the at bat. What the heck was I doing? It's a lot easier if I just have to focus on like watch the at bat, download the data, and now look down. Here's what we have. What needs to change?
Because and I also like the way I try. I follow the game is like different. It largely depends on like if I'm going for if I'm there for 6 days, I'm going to do something different than if I'm just like popping in for one game, or 2 games in a week.
That's
like
exactly it.
I have different sheets that I use.
Right, like I'm there for if I'm lucky, it's a 3-game weekend.
Yeah, so
which
like
has happened to me a few times.
I have like different like things like basically like forms that I work off of that allow me room to write about the pitchers, write about the hitters, track the things I like to track. Like for pitchers, for example, one thing I like to track is swinging strikes.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And I like to note which like side of hitter they were on. Like a good example of that was like with the Brian Bayo, with the trends that were developing with him that he really carried over. Like tonight was one of the starts. He really went into that. If you look at his like pitch data from tonight, it's like 4-seam fastballs up and changeups down to lefties, or changeups down and away to lefties, sliders away, sinkers into righties. Like stuff like that is a lot easier for me to like visualize after the fact when I have it written down. So I like tracking that. Or like for hitters, I track things like where the ball goes. Like has like a little hit chart where I can, draw a line and see what it is. And I also like to track like swing and misses for them. Like what pitchers are they missing? Things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on that. And it's all in chicken scratch that no one else can read, which is the funniest part. It's like,
I've seen it. He's
so
not lying.
messy. I write really small, and I write in shorthand that only I can really understand. Like I'll know it'll be like a 3-letter, it'll be like a super long word, like I don't know, like describing but it's all like shorthand. Like I have abbreviations that I know for everything, or I just try to so I can get as much like information down in a small,
you learn a
shorthand
space. You learn a shorthand and a process. Like I'm sure I chart differently than you chart, but
like everyone chart, like, and I've like accumulated over the years a lot of different like chart types that scouts have used to kind of find the ones that I like the best. And I've kind of like gotten like there's a certain one that I like the best now that I got from someone a few years ago. But it's interesting now that a lot of scouts have moved away from a pen and paper to basically all of them now just use iPads. Yeah. So that's an interesting development. I could do that. I have an iPad, but I personally prefer pen and paper for me for now. But yeah, sure. I get it. If you're doing 160 games a year, I can understand why an iPad would be much easier for organizing it than like I find it overwhelming sometimes how many loose leaf papers I have, but I keep them organized, thankfully. But yeah, like I can understand
thought about
it.
I
can understand why the iPad is kind of the preferred method for them these days.
Agreed. Our next email, Ian, is from our Patreon supporter David B, who says, I wanted to contribute to the conversation around most surprising contributors in the big leagues by adding Santiago Espinal. Good addition. Granted, being drafted in the 10th round. Granted, being drafted in the 10th round is not as crazy as Dubon, who was drafted in the 26th, but Espinal also looks to be a regular player on a very good team.
No, that's a really good one.
And he has even earned an all-star selection for whatever that's worth. Very good point. No question. I didn't realize what career BREF WAR. What do you think Espinal is at? In 241 career games, put it that way.
What is he at?
Yeah. Career B WAR.
Sorry, 5.1.
Yeah.
I was just going to guess because I was guessing he was like 3 point something this year.
No, he's 2.3 this year. He was 2.5 last year, which I did not remember.
Really? I thought he would have been like 3 this year and like 1.5 last year and like 0.5 the year before, something like that.
No, I mean, last year in 92 games, he hit 311, 376, 405.
Yeah. I mean, he's turned himself into, he's shown that the value of like having position versatility, being a really good defender and making contact, like that can carry you a long way in this game these days.
The rest of the email says probably not as much of a surprise, maybe Josh Reddick. I still remember the constant back and forth on Reddick versus Ryan Kalish. Still, as a 17th round draft pick, albeit under very different rules, having the career he had is quite impressive. I just don't remember how highly he was regarded when he was drafted. Best David B. Reddick. So that was the key here is the very different draft rules. Reddick got a decent signing bonus. Let me see if I can pull that up really quick. Do you remember off the top of your head what year he was?
No, I think didn't he say like
9?
Didn't he get like, I want to say like 450 or something?
He definitely got an above slot bonus. And he was, I mean, I love the story where he was basically like, I was academically ineligible. I would have signed for whatever they offered me. Because he wasn't going to be able to play baseball the following year unless he got his grades back up. Is this the year?
He's 06.
He's 06. Okay.
He got 140 actually only.
Which I thought he got more, but keep in mind,
Tyler Whedon and Lars Anderson were both in that group and got way more.
Keep in mind, like, this is 2006 money, right? Which is very different. I mean, that year, if you look like, Daniel Bard got their highest bonus at 1.5.
Well, yeah, and you look like the 28th pick now, slot value is like 2.5 million or something.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a very different money system. But yeah, like you said, Kalish got 6. Tyler Whedon, who was a high school catcher, got 420. Again, the thing with Reddick is he was a JUCO. Again, they signed him. I don't even know. We don't have him as having a commitment after the JUCO. So I don't know what kind of bargaining leverage he had.
I mean, if he wasn't going to qualify at a JUCO, he probably didn't have a college commitment.
Exactly. No, good point. So yeah, I mean, Reddick, he wasn't like top 10 regarded, but I do think he was more highly regarded than an Espinal or a Dubon. Put it that way. I think he was ranked based on the fact that he got that much money and he came out hot, right? Like he immediately came in.
Well, I think he probably ended up in like the top 10 in the system at one point too.
Oh, no question. He was like top 3 in the system. Yeah, no question.
Right. Whereas like Dubon or Espinal, I don't think ever, got that high and both had significant careers.
Right. But just very different from where he started. But yeah, he went to Greenville in 2007. He didn't play in 06. I think he signed late because that was back when the signing deadline was much later. Yeah, he signed on August 8th, which then was like a month and a half after the draft, not 2 weeks after the draft like it is now. He went to Greenville and hit 306, 352, 531 with 18 bombs in 94 games. And so he kind of endeared himself to us very quickly. And then he got promoted up to AA Portland for the playoffs just to get some more at bats, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And then he went to Lancaster the next year and did Lancaster things. So yeah. But yeah, great email. I like the call on Espinal 100%. So thanks for the email.
Yeah, I think Espinal and Dubon are definitely the best answers to that question. And yep. I had forgot about Espinal, so that's a good shout out.
Our final email, Ian, is from Andrew, and he says, this is the one I was telling you about earlier, just for fun on the podcast, not like it was bad or something. Just for fun, if everything about Rafaela's defense from the Alex Spear article turned out to be true, and in a few years he reached his insane defensive ceiling, how badly would he have to hit to not get regular playing time? To be clear, I don't think he's a bad hitter. Thanks, Andrew. The Alex Spear article, he spoke to an evaluator who said he could be up winning Gold Gloves in MLB right now and will, correct me if I'm wrong, this was something like would create enough value on defense that he doesn't even really need to hit much. And I forget.
I don't know. I have it right here.
Okay.
Just find it. The quote was, a scout for a rival American League team said his organization already pegged Rafael as a near elite outfielder whose skill rivals that of all but a few big leaguers. I do agree with that statement. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe not to that extreme, but like, I think he has the defensive ability that is better than, at least 60 to 70% of the current MLB outfielders.
Would be the best defensive outfielder on the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, yeah.
Today. Yeah.
A National League executive said that is based on combination of statistical data and in-person evaluations graded Rafael is literally off of our scale in terms of defensive impact. So he didn't say anything about the hitting. I don't know where that.
Well, no, he's saying if what is in the article about his defensive ceiling.
Oh, no. What I was saying, what you said though, there was
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There was no quote about like him hitting. Yeah.
Right. Anyway. So if what the Spear article turned out to be true, how badly would he have to hit to not get not be an MLB regular?
I mean, what did Jackie Bradley hit this year? Like 195.
Right.
Like it's probably 200 or below. Like, you're talking Mendoza line.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Yeah,
I think that's probably right.
I mean, his defense is that good. Like, I think we've been saying it. Like, it's 70 defense at center, 60 potential at shortstop,
which is nuts.
And the 70 in center is like he might be there already. Like,
oh yeah,
it's not like Miguel Blaze, who like I think he's a very good defender already, but like we're projecting him out to be that. Like Rafael is like a near finished product in center field. If
you put Blaze in a major league game right now in center field, is he even a 50 defender? Maybe.
I mean, he's going to make some mistakes because he's so young.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the point. That's why it's projection.
Yeah. Whereas Rafael, I mean, I'm looking at, we have 70 center fielder and 60 shortstop. Yeah.
Which I agree with. All right. Well, that's all of our emails. Thank you all for emailing. Again, podcast@soxprospects.com. Thoughts, questions, concerns, anything you want to ask about, hit us up. And with that, we'll wrap things up on this episode of the podcast. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. You can follow the site @SoxProspects. Actually, both on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Ian @IanCundall. That's IANCUNDALL. Follow me @SPChrisHatfield. If you want to support the site, you can support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects. Like all of our $5 level Patreon supporters, those would be Deb Kendall, Andrew Wallen, Lendl Martin, Ernest Shermer, Kyle C., Tyler Woodrow, Pat Walsh, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Evan Kirkwood, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Ben NRI, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendel, Kevin Catrides, Steve Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Mark Herman, Brian Cowan, Andrew K., Jeff Harwood, Dusty G., Michael Murphy, Bob Introne, Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Jason Stoneburner, Jason Parker, Mike Mignosa, Jeff Richardson, Eric Peterson, Michael Cullen, John McGee, Nicholas Lenson, Paul Manish, James P. McMahon, Jim Tuttle, Adam Gregory, Brian Rose, Jake O'Donnell, and our newest $5 level Patreon supporter, John Mulqueen. Thank you, sir. Thank you all for your support. We'll be back in your eardrum soon with another episode of the podcast. Until then, sit tight. We'll be back soon.